I want to put all the metrics into a context. And I want to focus then on what are the 2 or 3 or 4 metrics that lead to us achieving what we need to achieve as a company this year.
Welcome to What Gets Measured, a Ninja Cat podcast about marketing, performance management, metrics, and effectiveness. Because what gets measured gets managed. I'm your host, Jake Sanders. Kevin Hillstrom is president of Mine That Data, a consultancy that helps CEOs understand how customers interact with advertising, products, brands, and channels by using sophisticated and proprietary analytics tools forged during his 25-year career in the retail industry. He's been a VP of database marketing at Nordstrom, the director of circulation for Eddie Bauer, manager of analytical services for Land's End, and countless other roles, and he's here today to talk about measuring omnichannel marketing. Kevin, thanks for being here.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Cool. So let's talk about that career. You've worked with some big brands, like I mentioned in the intro. Can you give us a quick overview of your experience and what led you to starting up your own consultancy, Mine That Data?
Yeah, we go way, way back. My undergraduate degree is in statistics. And this was before data science was anything credible. And so there were only 9 of us at the University of Wisconsin that had that degree in my graduating class. And so it wasn't easy finding a job out of college. And so most of the jobs were in government. I spent a couple of years working for a hybrid seed company in Iowa, analyzing how corn and sorghum hybrids performed in different parts of the country. And the analytics for that are extremely comparable to the analytics in retail. So as an example, if you take a whole bunch of corn plants and you plant the seeds really close together, they don't grow very tall and the yields are poor. If you space them out, you get really good yields. However, you don't have a lot of plants, and so you don't perform well either. So there's like a fine line in between which is optimal. This is very similar to email marketing, for instance. If you send 1 email marketing campaign per month, you're going to have really good results, but your sales are going to be poor. If you send 6 email campaigns a day, you're going to have poorer results and you're going to have low response, but your sales will be okay. So it's the same concepts. So when after 2 years of doing that, I went to Land's End and then eventually Eddie Bauer and Nordstrom and just basically worked in direct marketing and in retail, trying to understand how customers behaved. And probably the thing I learned more than anything else was the analytics were nice, but trying to convince a business leader or an executive or even a director or manager to make a decision was really where all the stuff and all the action happened. So it really didn't matter how good all my analytics were. If I couldn't convince somebody to do something, it didn't matter what I had just analyzed.
Right.
So at the end of my tenure at Nordstrom, I had pretty much done everything I could do in retail. And I decided to start my own consulting practice so I could help companies learn the things that I had learned over the course of a couple of decades at those companies. So I've been doing my own consulting work now for 16 years, and you just basically keep getting the same recurring themes happening over and over. So times change, but the themes in working with human beings stay the same. Right. And so that's really where I try to excel, is trying to get human beings to make changes based on what information is telling them.
Wow. I love that. And you bring up a good metaphor for marketing, which is planting, and kind of seeing those things through. But you hit on something really amazing, is that if you can't convince the leadership team of what the data is telling you, mm-hmm. you got nothing. And it's so weird because we have all the data now. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like all the data's there, but the one thing that's holding people back is relating things? Is that one of the reoccurring themes you see?
It's somewhere in between relating it to people who don't understand information, and I don't want this to sound negative, but an analytics person is going to oftentimes go down a path that is exciting and fun for the analytics person and isn't necessarily what excites somebody else. So there's a balance in terms of the analytics person goes a certain distance in terms of excitement, and also at the same time has to be able to communicate in the opposite direction in a way that the executive will like. And somewhere between those two things, when you find the right balance, you actually make a difference.
Yeah. And so this next question, you're big on analytics. You have, a lot of experience here. What do you see as the main barriers preventing marketers from leveraging their data, and how do you help your clients solve the challenge of turning analytics into insights?
So I think my clients, there are different kinds of executives. So in other words, there are some, my clients have executives who basically understand the data, a lot of the data themselves, and they want to be the genius and they want to implement things. And so in those cases, I'm not going to be a lot of help. And you can ferret this out in the what I would call like the discovery phase, where you're trying to get to know a client.
Yeah.
When you talk to that executive, they have a lot of preconceived notions about how they think the world works, how they think their customers behave. And if they ask you leading questions about, could you analyze something in a specific pattern, I'm not interested. Because they're already prescribing for you what they think the outcome is going to be, and all they want is somebody. They're looking for a mouse, to use 20-year-old term. They're looking for a mouse to be able to click, and they want me to be that mouse. So I'm not too excited about those kind of projects. Yeah. And there are times when you get a genuine, honest question, and when you're doing the discovery phase, you find out that person is probably what I would call humble. Those are going to be good projects. So they have a question. They do not surmise they know the answer. They recognize internally they don't have the people to give the answer. And they are humble, meaning they're not going to tell you how to do everything. I find that those clients tend to be the ones willing to pay the most. They tend to be the ones who are going to ask good questions when you actually start sharing information with them, and they're going to be the ones most likely to implement your findings. So I really like looking for that humble gene, and a sort of a willingness to learn. If I see that, I'm pretty excited.
Well, and how do you get? I mean, like, what's just your general advice for creating humility around data? I mean, because a lot of people don't have it. They're like, well, here it is. I can collect it. I can put it in this hockey, stick chart, and it's clear. But how do you help? How would you help motivate humility and humility around data? Like, so
when I'm in a discovery phase with a client, I'm kind of looking for whether the client has that gene or not.
Yeah.
When I actually start my projects, I'm usually asked to communicate results to a group of anywhere between 6 and 12 people. And there is going to be somebody in that group that is not going to be on my side. They're not on the side of the sponsor of the project. They're not on my side. They are in it for them. And so what I do is in the first 10 days of a project, my projects typically last about a month. And in the first 10 days, I send out a daily tidbit. So that's what I call it. It's like, here's tidbit number 1. And it's something I've learned about customer behavior. Now, I've got about 10,000 lines of computer code already set up. So when I get their data, I run it through the 10,000 lines of code. I get my tables that I'm looking for and analyses. And so I already know where things are going to head. I don't know the specific endpoint, but I've got enough information that tells me how to shape these tidbits. And so over the course of the first 10 days, I start sharing things, and I am looking for that one person who's going to be against me to raise their hand and say, I'm the problem. And it always happens. That person is very quick to raise their hand. I'm also looking for the humble people to ask me questions. So I don't like it when I share a tidbit and there's just dead air. That means I'm not doing my job.
Right.
So I'm looking to see, of the 6 to 12 people on the distribution list, who is it that is asking good questions? Because those are the people who are going to probably be implementing my results. Yeah. And so those are the people I want to see. And so I'm looking for those two different paths at the same time in those first 10 days. And the person who's going to be a problem raises their hand first. They raise it immediately. I'll give you an example. I worked with a startup, And the chief marketing officer accidentally sends me an email to a group distribution list of hers. So she accidentally copies me on it. And I'm 2 tidbits in, so I'm 2 days into the project. And she says, "Are we going to listen to this idiot?" So she doesn't know that she's accidentally copied me on the list. Are we going to listen to this idiot? It's obvious he knows nothing about our business. It's obvious he knows nothing about marketing. He thinks customers have to buy many times before they become loyal. This is not the person we need to be working with, and we need to educate him on what our culture is and how we view our business. And until we do that, I'm really not interested in this person. And so I just, I got this at like 9:30 on a Wednesday night.
Oh, man.
And so at 9:45, I responded back, and I just did a very, short little tiny 1 paragraph saying, all I'm doing is reflecting what your data is showing. You are free to disagree with me. That doesn't bother me. Thank you, Kevin. But I now know who the problem is. And I know how to work around this person, because there's not going to be anything I can say that's going to convince this person that I have something valuable to share with them. Right. So I now I spent 30 days working around this person and making sure this person was put on an island where they can't really affect what I'm trying to share with them.
Oh my gosh. Well, and you share a lot on Twitter, which is where I found you, because you share a lot of your experiences working at those big companies that you have experience at, but in their like magazine department and sort of like direct response, things. And it seems like an older version of, what modern marketers are tackled with, nowadays, but there's something that's so relatable about those old iterations of marketing communication channels that you share with, that I was just like, well, this works now. This works here, right here with business models that we have. Like everybody thinks, DTC or, like you said, startups or, it's different. Things are different now. Just speaking about like marketing data management and where you see it headed in the future, do you feel that there's tried and true methods in this area that are evergreen? And do you think things have changed a lot since, back in the day?
The how you implement something has changed dramatically. The underlying customer behavior has barely changed at all. So what I mean by that is, if I want... if I was working with a company and they have their customer journey whiteboarded on some conference room wall, and they show how the customer discovers them on Facebook, goes to Google, does a search, comes to their website, goes out and looks for a coupon code from an affiliate, and they've got the 21 steps all outlined.
Right.
And then the customer ultimately buys something. That process is different.
Right.
The fact that you have to figure out a way to educate a prospect that you have something valuable and the prospect should purchase from you, that is no different. So the how is different. The I need to find these new customers has not changed at all. If I went back to Land's End in 1990 and I measured the odds of a 12-month buyer buying again next year, it was about 55%. If I go to Land's End today and do that, it's 55%. So in other words, the underlying customer behavior is identical.
Wow.
The customer is going to buy 3 times a year if they purchase. They have, for most of my clients, the customer has about a 25% chance to a 35% chance of buying again next year. And because that probability is low, I'm not criticizing the client. That's just the product assortment they have dictates whether customers are likely to come back or not come back.
Wow.
So most of my clients' customers are not likely to come back, which means you're going to have to find new customers, which means you have to have a program in place to educate and teach people who have never bought from you why they should buy from you. All of those concepts are, for 35 years, the same concepts.
Right.
Now, the how you go about doing that is completely different. And it requires somebody other than me to go do that, because I don't have that gene in me to do that in a way that is relevant in 2023.
Right.
My genes are still valid for showing what that overriding customer behavior is and how the customer ultimately doesn't change.
Right. Well, and so speak more about customers not changing, because I think that might be sort of vivifying for the audience to be like, yo, I understand that, there's all these new channels and all these new ways, but loyalty, loyalty, growing your business through loyalty versus acquiring new customers. I mean, I've seen a couple rants where you were going up against folks who were saying like, no, we just need to get more of these loyal customers. And, you were like, well, here's the stats. Here's what I found. Is there any other kind of thoughts that you can have that get you to that customers don't change, or any other insights you can share with us? Because I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, I have learned over time that the first thing I share with people who don't have the metrics is I share what percentage of the customers who bought in 2021 buy again in 2022. And because that number sets the stage for everything you want to do as a company. So I'll give you an example. I had a client, I still have them, but I worked a lot more with them 7 or 8 years ago. And they have a repurchase rate for their customers that's around 30%, which means that if they have 100 customers this year, 30 of them will buy again next year. And so simple math tells you you're going to have to find 70 other people to come in. Of that 30 that buy, about 5 of them are loyal customers. The other 25 are not loyal. They're just passing through. Oh, we'll buy something else. They buy it and they move on.
Right.
So they've got 5 loyal customers. The executive, the president of this division, is a firm believer in loyalty. And he strongly believes that if you take these 5 customers and you treat them really well, they will spread the word for you. And those 5 customers will create 5 other loyal customers. And now you've got 10 of them. And if you have 10 loyal customers, your sales are going to increase by 20% and everything is taken care of. So this leader managed his business during the period right before COVID started. Mm-hmm. And his business was constantly just trending down, but he firmly believed in what he was saying. When COVID started, people had to buy from DTC brands because stores were closed.
Right.
So his sales increased significantly. And he used that as a way to say, without any data, just an opinion, that what he was, as a quote unquote, right, as he sent to me in an email. I'm right. What I'm doing is working. And so what I did, I had a forecast. I have a forecasting tool that I use for most of my clients, and it forecasts out what's going to happen to your business 5 years from now. Oh. And so I showed him this glut of COVID customers and what they're going to do. So I said in 2020, they're generating a lot of sales from you. In 2021, the 30% of them that stick around with you are in the process of becoming loyal. In 2022, you've got 5 loyal customers. Everybody else is gone. And then in 2023, those 5 loyal customers become 3 loyal customers. And then they become 2 and they become 1. So this huge glut of customers you got in 2020 becomes 1 customer in 2025. And so in analyzing his business, I just analyzed it again last month. His sales are now down 20% in the last 18 months. Because it's happening exactly as described. If your annual repurchase rate is low, it does not matter what you do from a loyalty standpoint. There are not enough loyal customers to ever make a difference. And so he is ignoring the need for new customers. So his new customers are decreasing year over year. In fact, they're down 35% from where they were 4 years ago. So he is basically running this ship into the ocean. He's running it right into the iceberg. And he is confident that he can fix it in spite of all of this. Those are the kind of things I typically run across. I end up with the data says this, and the business leader says, I know what I'm doing. Let me do it my way. And so you just end up with that fundamental contrast. If I did 20 consulting projects a year, there are 2 or 3 where there's a leader who takes what I say, implements it, and then you see the change in business happen immediately. And it's not really what I'm saying. It's just fundamental math.
Right.
That's all it is. If you're just going to follow the math, things are going to work out.
Well, and I think a lot of people don't want to follow the math because they have their hearts involved, and I mean, the word of mouth that whole trope is insane. Like, if it's good, people will tell someone else that it's good, and it's so weird how we lean on that, because we're sort of off-putting the hard work of, like you said, educating, informing and sort of introducing our brand to new folks. Yeah. People say, well, the word of mouth is going to just take hold. And in some ways, here's a question. Have you seen word of mouth be a thing, or like, is that just like a myth or something?
No, word of mouth can work. Hard work works better, but you can come up with something. I had a client 10 years ago called Griot's Garage. So they sell automotive parts, they sell cleaning supplies, etc. They have one product that is so exceptional that people freely talk about it with their friends and neighbors, and that one product generates 10 or 15% of their sales. Now, that was 10 years ago. I still know they sell that product, so I don't know if that's still the case. But yes, if you have something that is really good, people are going to talk about it. I had a client called New Pig. So this is about a decade ago. Okay. And so they also sell like automotive, if you had a big oil spill at Jiffy Lube, they have products to clean up the oil spill.
Oh, okay.
Okay. They, on the anniversary of a customer buying from them for the first time, they sent an email and they said, you can have 20% off, or you can have this little pig chocolate, your choice. So it's a little chocolate in the shape of a pig. So you get 20% off, or you get the little pig. Most of the customers took the pig. They took the pig, and they loved it. And you would look at the data, they wouldn't even take advantage of the 20% discount, but within a month or two, they would purchase again. So yes, that word of mouth, and they would tell their friends, you're going to get this pig, it's coming. So that was an example where word of mouth worked. Right. I had another client that they said they put a ghost in your package. So when they shipped the package with the product, they would tell you, they put a little note and would say, we put a ghost in your package. Enjoy. Well, I would go out and check, I go on Twitter and look for the hashtag associated with this ghost. And there's people that were always talking about how delighted they were that they ordered from this brand and they got the ghost. And now the ghost was haunting their house. So yes, word of mouth doesn't have to be difficult. But it has to be clever, and there has to be a use behind it. So in other words, I just gave examples where one, the product was so great. The first example, the product was so great that people talked about it.
Right.
The second example was the gift they got was so great they talked about it. The third one was the ghost was amazing. I'm going to talk about it. So it can happen.
Well, and I on a previous podcast, we had somebody who deals in the automotive industry, and she was saying there's a dealership that you get a free barrel of pickles with every car. Yeah. And I was like, what? That sounds ridiculous, but they've been doing it for 20 years. Mm-hmm. And like, it seems like such a, wait, I'm so confused. Like the margins must be huge sourcing pickles or something, but that was something that inspired word of mouth. I think most people they think the product itself will do the business. No. You have to put something else on top. Another dealership she had was everybody gets a giant teddy bear. And the teddy bear is like just in the seat hugging you and stuff. And it seems so dumb and it seems like it's not related, but that's marketing, friends. Like you give somebody a reason to talk, not hopefully rely on them to talk about you. Like, is that sort of where I'm getting?
That's I think where you're getting. I have a company that I'm familiar with. They give a slab of bacon. That's what they do. You do something that they like, you get a slab of bacon. Yes. So I think sometimes what I get frustrated by is just because we can analyze things and track where customers come from, and then we say, okay, let's go get more customers from that source. We don't do any of the underlying work that makes it worthwhile to somebody to pay attention to us. Yes. And so I need to see more of my clients doing the things that cause someone to want to pay attention to us. I did a presentation 5 years ago, it was 7 years ago, 2016.
Okay.
It was a 200 slide PowerPoint deck of examples of what companies do to create awareness.
Ooh.
And I would take this on the road and do these presentations at conferences. And I stopped doing it because the amount of hate I got from this was so over the top that it was hurting my business. So I had a woman at one conference, she sat with her laptop, and I would say, here's the company, here's what they're doing. And she would look at it, and then she would raise her hand. And I'd go, yes, you in the back. And she would say, they're offering 30% off on their website right now. So that idea couldn't work well because it's obvious they have to clear through their merchandise. What other ideas do you have that work? And so whenever you share a specific tactic, you open a door to a naysayer who can say, that didn't work, show me another one. And they're going to keep asking for another one until they either humiliate you or you find the one example of 1,000 that they agree with.
Right.
And so I've learned not to go into the individual tactics because that's just a losing proposition. Go into you're going to need to have a program, and the program is going to have to deliver 70 new customers this year. What does your program look like? And I put it on them.
Yeah, well, you're right, because those numbers aren't looking good in your defense, but also it is a bevy of inspirational ideas saying, like, look, these people make oil cleaning supplies, but this Pick chocolate is doing them like good business, and it seems like it would inspire folks to find their own thing, but I think you're right, like, you're going up against some naysayers who are just like, no, that's silliness. No, we can do something better, more strategic. Those are just silly tactics. But it's so weird because those silly tactics are the things that end up being more effective over time.
Yeah.
So, well, let's get into some more stories here, because once again, if you have a chance, follow Kevin on Twitter. I'm pretty sure you're on LinkedIn doing the same thing, but your Twitter threads are epic. But you've worked a long time on tracking ROI and metrics with a ton of different clients, like you've been sharing with us. Can you share some Cinderella stories about measuring marketing effectiveness with clients that have a happy ending? And then conversely, do you have any cautionary tales about marketing data that you can share?
Probably my favorite Cinderella story is it was a woman who founded her own apparel company. This has been about 9 or 10 years ago. And so she grew the business from nothing to like $4 or $5 million. She followed my blog. She followed me on Twitter. And so she reached out and she says, I'm at $4 million in sales. I'm looking to get to 30 to 50 million. If I can get to 30 to 50 million, then somebody is likely to buy my business, and I'd still like to work with the business, but I would need the funding of somebody else to take it where I want to take it.
Right.
So I get her, a $4 million business. She can email me a spreadsheet with all of her customer transactions. That's how small it is.
Right.
And you go into that data and you're able to see that her customers, contrary to most of my clients, they weren't terribly likely to repurchase, but if they did repurchase, they became loyal very quick. So for most of my clients, the process of becoming a loyal customer takes between 2 and 5 years. Her customers became loyal within like 5 to 10 months. They would buy 5 or 6 times a year. They loved what they got. They loved. And she still had the problem where 6 out of 10 customers never came back, but the 4 out of 10 became loyal quick. And so the two of us worked together on a spreadsheet that she would have her customer acquisition sources. So she would have, say Instagram was one of her sources for new customers. I would have her annual budget. Her annual budget might be $200,000 that she'd spend on Instagram, and it would generate, 1,000 customers or whatever it was, or 5,000 or 10,000 customers. I would say if you change your spend from $200,000 a year to $500,000 a year, you go from this many new customers to this many new customers. And then I would map out, obviously, how often these customers repurchase. You get these sales in these months. And after 5 years, your business looks like this. And we can also measure profitability down to the month. And so she could see that in 5 years, this is what she would have to do today to get to what her dream was. And she followed the prescription. So within 3 years, she was where she wanted to be, sold out, and she's still running the business. But she now has the financial backing she needs, and she's no longer bootstrapping her business, and everything is wonderful. She is one of the few people who like followed every single prescription I wrote and had the success happen exactly as it was spelled out. So that's not me really. That's her being a great operator that caused that to happen.
Right.
So I don't put that on me. I put that on her, that she did what she needed to do to get there.
Amazing.
But it's also, if you step out of the analytics, meaning which campaign on Facebook worked best, if you step out of that instead say, how much do I have to spend to get where I want to get? You look at your business differently. Woo. And then you're okay, because you're going to have smart people who are going to know how to know what campaign to execute. You hand that off to the smart people to do. But I think what we're missing in the reason I bring up the Cinderella story is we are missing somebody who steps out of that detail for just 10 minutes. Absolutely. And says, okay, I need to get here. Therefore, these are the tactics I have to follow to get there. And then directs everybody in the organization to do the things that cause that growth to happen.
Wow. It's so crazy. And you mentioned a lot of great moments in omni-channel marketing, and you say it sarcastically because you're look at this. Like, what are we doing? We have our heads so stuck in our tactics, that you can't find a way to be strategic because you're so isolated. You're so siloed, in your place. And I mean, is that where a lot of the horror stories come from? Is just people sort of ignoring the omni-channel reality or kind of making these summations and sort of like, well, yeah, that's what the data says, but we're different, Yeah.
Yeah, the reason I do that is so I do a lot of, I will find a case where some retail company does something horribly stupid, and I just label it as great moments in omnichannel history. There's a difference between a business leader doing what is necessary for the business leader and their brand to be successful, right, and what a vendor or a trade journalist or a research brand need to do to be successful.
Right.
Okay. So what I mean by that is I had an employee when I worked at Nordstrom, and this employee every morning would read what the trade journal said about retail. They subscribed to everything from Forrester Research. They would subscribe to stuff from Gartner. This person knew every single thing that the third-party community knew about retail.
Right.
And he would send me emails during the day. He wouldn't even come into my office because he knew what the answer was going to be. He'd send me an email, and he would have these little pieces sewn together from, I was reading in Catalog Age magazine that retail brands need to send a lot of catalogs, and that, as we all know, omni-channel customers are worth 9 times as much as a single channel customer, and therefore our strategy needs to evolve. I'm looking forward to what you're going to do to make it evolve. Thank you. List his name. So no accountability on his behalf, no original ideas on his behalf, just him copying and pasting what he saw other people writing, and then saying, why don't you do what they're writing about? And that line of thinking, once I started consulting, is out there.
Way out there.
All over the place.
All over.
I had, when I worked at Nordstrom, I had a Forrester Research rep who would come in the building. I don't know how he got in. So I had administrative assistants who protected me from people who wanted to waste my time. And I would literally be at my desk, and all of a sudden there'd be a knock on the door. And I'd be like, hi, Tom here. How you doing? I'm like, Tom, how did you get in the building? And he goes, 5 minutes. What I'm looking for is 5 minutes. And he would sit down and he would say, I was talking to somebody at Neiman Marcus yesterday. You probably know so-and-so. And he would just name drop whatever. And,
Right.
and they're really looking at this omni-channel thing as the path to success. And I'm thinking if I could get you and someone from Neiman Marcus together, we could just talk about omni-channel together. And what he's trying to do is he's trying to grow his business. And he's trying to come up with a theme to connect things.
Right.
He doesn't care whether that's going to help us sell something or, if we sell more shoes or not. He couldn't care less. He has an agenda.
Yeah.
And our industry is so consumed by an agenda.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter if it is direct-to-consumer business and there's certain digital marketing tactics and, oh my gosh, we got this machine learning thing and AI and, and if we sell, and customers want to buy with crypto, absolutely. They just start saying things. They're not doing anything that's based in actual customer behavior. If the reason the customer's not buying from you is you don't accept crypto, you've got a problem. I mean, these aren't the things you're being sold are not reality. And so I get frustrated and I want my clients to focus on what matters and focus on executing against what matters.
Yes.
And so I have 1,000 stories of companies that go down this path of the industry is saying X, therefore I have to do X.
Right. Yeah.
I had a boss at Eddie Bauer. So this is 1998.
Okay.
And he was all excited. He got a query, right? He said, and he's presenting this in an executive meeting. He says, customers who bought from 2 channels spent 3 times as much as customers who bought from 1 channel. Therefore, we need to expand our channels so that all customers are buying from us 3 times as often. And so you're sitting in this meeting, right? And so all the heads are nodding. Oh, yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Yeah. And so I asked a question. I said, the people who bought in 2 channels, how many times did they have to purchase by default in your query? He goes, what do you mean? I said, tell me how many times they had to buy at minimum. He goes, well, they had to buy twice. I said, a single channel customer, what was the minimum number of times they had to buy? He goes, once. I said, all you've proven is that customers who bought twice are more valuable than customers who bought once. That's it. You just proved it. And so the whole room just sits there and he's like, no, that's not where I'm going with this. No, we need to expand our channels. You don't understand. I run into this logic every month.
Oh my God. Every day.
Years later, the logic gets worse, because now they throw the customer journey in with it. And so the whole thing is about the customer journey. We need to get the customer to go to Google and do the search. And should we pay for the branded term? Yeah, I think we should. Okay, we'll do that. And they're not thinking.
Yes.
The customer is going to buy from you 2 times a year if you're lucky. They have a 30% chance of buying again. And it means you need to go find some new customers, go educate them. It really gets to be simple if you just take all of that stuff and move it aside.
It's so bizarre. I mean, and like marketing science, the Ehrenberg Bass, they've proven these things, but still we ignore them because people in the metaverse are different. And AR is going to change everything, and VR and large language modeling, like you were just saying, like, AI is going to change everything. It can seem very enticing. And I got into marketing originally. I was in social media, and I worked for a law firm, and they were paying millions of dollars for TV ads and radio ads. And I was like, oh, we're wasting our money. Like, we need to be doing social media, and all this stuff. And thankfully, the head partner of the firm was like, well, I hear what you're saying, but give it some time. And so I started working with the intake department, and then I started, really drilling into, why'd you call us today? What's going on? And then over 3 or 4 months, I took a look at all the stats, and I was like, holy Lord. TV is totally kicking butt. Radio is totally kicking butt. And, I just had to see that for myself. But I came on board being like, no, this is wrong. I know what's going on. You guys are dinosaurs. And then it's like, I don't know, but I had to have a good boss who kind of let me a little longer of a leash, was like, okay, you can run around and make yourself tired. I'll show you why this works. But so many brands are out there thinking, no. we need to be strategic. We need to go for account-based, marketing. We're going to go very small. We're going to catch the big whales, but no one knows who you are. What's your word out there for people who are struggling, trying to get some brand awareness, thrown into their strategy where people are just being very tactical? Like what's your advice there?
I'm going to give an example. I have a client who they sell men's apparel.
Okay.
And they sell generally to a 50 to 60-year-old male.
Okay.
So the things that work for a 50 to 60-year-old male are things like space ads and magazines. Okay, not exactly something that's fun, not exactly trendy, not exactly something that's hip or anything like that.
Right.
They do a really good job in newspapers because they're talking to a 65-year-old person who's still reading a newspaper. Okay, so they have a lot of younger employees who have a lot of ideas that the older executives are not very fond of because the older executives think their customer is an older executive. Their
Right.
chief financial officer came up with a program for this. So if you wanted to be a younger employee who had your ideas, he said, let's let Socks be the place where that is done. So in other words, so in Socks, he would say, you want to be on the Socks team? We're going to assign a merchant to that. We're going to have a creative individual with that. We're going to have a web analyst with that. We're going to have an online operations manager with that. We're going to have an offline marketer there, and we're going to have an analytics person.
Right.
Okay. This team, they can do whatever they want. Okay.
Wow.
They're going to be given a budget. The budget might be $500,000 a year, but they can grow Socks however they want. The only thing they're going to be held accountable for is at the end of the year, Socks has to be more profitable than every other category they do. And if Socks is more profitable than the other categories, then it proves their ideas work.
Oh my God.
And so they use Socks as their lab. And each year it's a new team of people. So they don't keep the same people there. The next year, January 1st, new group in there with Socks. And it's your job to change it. So if you want to use social media to grow, by all means do it. At the end of the year, your sales had better have increased, your profit better be better.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And so what happened to the Socks department? I think we're all wondering.
It turns out that Socks grow about the same rate as every other department. So it's trying to prove that they're trying to demonstrate that this stuff isn't easy and that you don't have all the answers. But they do things that do work. Right. And when they do things that do work, they then try that in other categories.
Wow.
So it's I think a business can have a lab. We view everything like we talk about testing. We don't talk about experimenting. So we do A/B tests, and that's considered a best practice. But
right.
we very seldom have the beaker with stuff smoking coming out of it. We're going to try to combine a couple of things and hope the lab doesn't blow up. We don't do that, and we need to do that.
Yes, I totally agree. But in a safe place that's still under the auspices of still getting that money in. Like this isn't just, I love the idea of a smoking beaker. But we have to have some trained professionals. But at the end of the day, profit's still the game.
Yes,
experimentation.
So this team has the whole year, and Christmas time is when sales peak. So they still have to go through the process everybody else does of planning campaigns that they're going to execute in November. And then all the pressure's on in November. And when they fail, they get to see what it's like to run an actual business, except that Socks is only 5% of their business or whatever. So they're not hurting anything when they screw up.
Gosh. Oh, I love that. That's so amazing. Well, so let's get towards the end here. If you had to give, you've given us so many amazing stories, so many great instances of how data can lead to decisions and how most people might deny that. And then they sort of, shortchange themselves. But if you had to condense all of this into one piece of advice when it comes to measuring marketing metrics, what's your advice to the audience? The one piece.
My one piece of advice would be to find whatever it is that you are measuring that connects to whatever the company is trying to achieve. So when I work in retail, It's typically with long-term companies that have been around for 30 or 40 years. And so for them, sales and profit are what matter.
Right.
So I am linking my metrics to their sales and profit. If they want to convert customers from stores to online so they can close stores, so they can cut back on expenses, my metrics change, and I'm going to look at what are the paths that customers go through that cause them to make that shift. And those are the things I'm going to focus on. And I think it's important to have a plan for a year. It's a plan that's flexible, but to have a plan that these are the metrics we're going to look at this year. These are what our objectives are this year, and they tie to whatever it is the company's trying to accomplish. That, to me, then, is what our focus is this year. And if we get 4 months into the year and we're failing miserably, then it all changes. That's okay. But for the most part, I don't want people stuck in, I'm looking to see how well this version of creative converted on Facebook.
Right.
That's still important, but that is important in the context of all these objectives I have as a company.
Right.
So that creative converting at a certain rate leads me to new customers. Those new customers might become good customers who are going to be willing to change channels and do something else, which fulfills an objective I have. So I want to put all the metrics into a context, and I want to focus then on what are the 2 or 3 or 4 metrics that lead to us achieving what we need to achieve as a company this year.
Oh, I'm going to put some applause behind that because that's so beautiful. And it's simple, but challenging because of the reasons you mentioned before, because this person thinks they know something. This person has a preconceived notion and they won't hear anything. Sure. And so, but it's so sweet. It's just an amazing sentiment to have context and metrics together. And that's how you're really going to start making some movements. So how can people learn more about you and connect with you online, Kevin? So
I obviously have my Twitter presence. It's at MindThatData. So that's where Twitter is where I experiment because you get the instant feedback right away. And so I will say things there that are a little more caustic than I would say elsewhere. But I'm looking for the feedback from people, and I want the feedback to come quickly. So that's what I do there. I have a blog.mindthatdata.com. I've written 4,907 posts as of this morning over the past 17 years. So that stuff is typically very focused on what my consulting products are. So basically I'm selling there. And so it's a different form of messaging.
Yeah.
And then if you want to follow me on Instagram at MindThatData, you can learn about my pickleball analytics as well, where I study pickleball matches and what things cause somebody to win or lose in pickleball, since I enjoy playing pickleball so much.
Cheese or chocolate?
Are you ready?
Sure.
Cheese or chocolate?
Chocolate.
Modern or classical art?
Modern.
Okay. On a boat or on a train?
Train.
Ooh, you figured that one out. Watch sports or play sports?
Play sports.
And probably pickleball, I'm assuming.
Absolutely.
Okay. P&Ls or LPs?
P&Ls.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And finally, gut reaction or gather data?
There's not an answer to that. I want both.
That's not fair.
I mean, I would gather data, it would be my preference, but I think we've stripped all the intuition out of business, and that frustrates me.
What Gets Measured is a Ninja Cat podcast. Please rate and review the show wherever you find your podcasts. Share this episode on social, and visit us on the web at ninjacat.io.